Welcome to the SEMO Sports Zone. Going into week 5 of high school football, my name is Drew. With me is my co-host Dave. David, how are we doing today?
Doing just fine. You had a good game on Friday night with Scott City and Portersville. That was a fun game you guys
Great
had.
Game,
Yes.
electric. And that was probably my favorite game of the season so far.
Yeah, we were talking last week. We wanted some close games, and you got what you wanted. That was a fantastic game, a tough game for both teams. Just a really tough game. There was a lot of games this week that were the first half were really tight. A lot of games kind of opened up in that second half, but there were a lot of good games in the first halves this week.
Yeah, I think this week 4 definitely solidified some teams in their placements. But I think going into week 5, this is going to be a good litmus test for the rest of all these like 4-0 teams, especially, is that they're finally going into some tougher games. And I think even for a team that we always put in the top 5, Jackson, they're having a game against Poplar Bluff. So, and that's an opponent that Cape just played. So we're finally going to get to see what they kind of look like side by side a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit of a measuring stick, kind of a measuring stick week for a lot of teams this week coming up. And, we're starting to get a feel of, like we said last week, the haves and the have-nots. This week, some of those haves are going to get some tough games. And we're going to see exactly how good they can be and how good of a run they might be able to make in the playoffs. And it's going to be very interesting week for sure.
Exactly. Let's just go ahead and start taking a run through of some of these games from last week. Dexter at East Prairie ended that game 36-0.
That was a tough game for the first half. East Prairie kind of controlled that first half, I thought. They didn't give Dexter much. Dexter really didn't burn a whole lot of plays in that first half. East Prairie was kind of able to control the clock. Dexter had a turnover early that off of a deflected pass that kind of hurt them. But the one thing that Dexter did is they stepped up and they didn't allow East Prairie anything in the end zone. Dexter's depth definitely took over in that second half. But something I thought Dexter needed, they kind of got punched in the mouth a little bit there by East Prairie, and East Prairie, I said, that was going to be the best team that they had played so far, and they were. They really kind of stepped up in that first half, and they just just not enough horses there in the second half. The thing that surprised me though is the Dexter offensive line didn't dominate the way I thought they would. East Prairie kind of got dominated by that Scott City line early in the year, but they've improved a lot, and Dexter didn't really, they just didn't really dominate the way I thought they would. But again, they took a punch in the mouth, and then the second half they dominated and just put the game away. But something that I thought they needed.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to tell it just from the score. You would think, oh, that's a blowout if you're just looking at the scoreboard itself. But Dexter's, that's a sub 40 game for them, which I don't think they've had this year beyond this game.
Right. And like I said, East Prairie controlled that first half. I think it was maybe, I think it was 16-0 at half. Dexter had 2 scores, and I think one of them was on a pick 6. Mm-hmm. And so, they offensively, they really didn't do much. I know that, but they really didn't run a lot of plays. East Prairie controlled the clock. They ran what they call their mush offense. It's kind of what Coach Penrod ran at Portersville, where you snap to your running back and he kind of runs behind a group of 3 that's in front of him, and then they hit the offensive line. And so, and they kind of controlled it a little bit. Dexter didn't, second half, once Dexter got a bigger lead, they weren't able to do that as much, and they couldn't control the clock. But, Dexter did what they needed to do in the second half. They didn't panic. They didn't, they just, and defensively, they stayed strong, kept him out of the end zone. And East Prairie's better than what people think. And so that was a good game.
No, just a quick note. I mean, for Dexter, you could definitely tell their defense had to come to play. Just reading a quick note that somebody sent me, Dexter had 4 interceptions, 1 a pick 6, which brings them to a total of 10 interceptions on the season. So, Dexter, as far as like their defense goes, they come to play every time. If their offense can pick it back up, which I'm sure they will, they're still looking as solid as they ever did.
Yeah, offense is one of those things that it may not be there all the time. I'm like, the other team is doing everything they can to stop you, and you're doing everything you can to stop them. And that defense of Dexter has proved that that's a big benefit for them, because they have a tough defense. They hit hard. This was a hard hitting game, and I think something that that Dexter needed going into this week coming up against Southern Boone, because Southern Boone is going to be a a tough challenge, and I think it's going to be. I think they're better than East Prairie. I think they're a lot like East Prairie and better, and we'll talk about that later. But I think this is a game that Dexter definitely needed, and I thought they played well, especially in that second half, to get that win.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Moving on, Malden at Sykeston. This game didn't go how I wanted it to. 16-49. I guess I am showing a little bit of bias, but I do want Malden to get their win this season, and I thought they could do it here. How do you think that game kind of panned out?
Sykeston played absolutely awful in the first half. I can't explain to you how awful they played in the first half. Let me just give you one drive. Malden gets sacked in the end zone for a safety, but no face mask. So, Sykeston, holds them to a 3-and-out, forces a punt. This is all in one drive. They punt, Malden punts. Oh, no, roughing the punter. So Malden gets the ball and continues to move the ball down the field, and Sykeston intercepts the ball. Oh, no, pass interference. All in one drive, and that's the way the first half went for them. They dropped 4 to 5 interceptions in the first half. It was just one thing after another that Sykeston did to hurt themselves in that first half. Now, that being said, the second half they played much better and put the game away the way they should have in the first half. They were clearly the better team. They have a kid named Keen Atkins, and really Sykeston needs to get him the ball more. He had 7 catches, 112 yards, and a touchdown, a kickoff return for a touchdown. He's a playmaker. He also had a couple of runs with some big gains. They need to get him the ball. He's the one playmaker they have on that team that can make a difference. In my opinion, their quarterback Pierce Baker, he played pretty well, but they need to get the ball to Atkins, and they look a lot better when they do. Malden, they hit a couple big plays in that first half. The offensive line wasn't there to protect the quarterback, and they don't even really try to run the ball. Really, it's just they just try to hit you with the big plays, and they hit a few in the first half, but really, I mean, I thought Sykeston kind of dominated that game in the second half and put the game away. But Malden's getting there though. Malden will get there. They've got some athletes, and I think they're kind of figuring out on who they need to get the ball and where. And I think they're gonna, when they match up against some other teams, I think they're gonna be okay.
Yeah, we say that every week that Malden's coming along, and we have to trust the process ourselves. I mean, we'll probably keep saying it, is that like you take these losses for what they are, you learn from it, and you grow. Like you said, Malden's got some athletes. They've got athletic talent on their side, and they've got space to kind of workshop it. So as much as we might keep saying it week after week, Malden will get there. I really do believe that. I think they will. As for Sykeston, do you think this is the shades of what we're probably going to be seeing in the next few seasons to come with it being such a young team?
Yeah, they're going to get better. I mean, because they play a lot of young guys. But yeah, they're definitely going to get better. I know that some of the coaches were frustrated with the way that first half went, and it was just and that game took forever. I mean, it was like, I think it didn't get over till after 10. I mean, it was just a super long game, a lot of incomplete passes, but there were dropped interceptions that they could have had. Turnovers, penalties, just stuff that in that first half that you can't have if you're going to. I mean, I heard it last night at one of the college games. Bad teams do what bad teams do, and you got to break that mold of doing that. And Sykeston, I thought, did that in the second half. They didn't play like they were a good team in the first half. A lot of just unforced errors and just mental mistakes that you can't have. Second half, though, they played completely different, looked a lot better, and really kind of put it on Malden, which is kind of what we thought might happen early in the game. I mean, when you look at the two teams, there's a kind of a difference just in the look of the two teams. But, and it should be because, Sykeston's a bigger school. They should have more resources and things. But, I think Sykeston, I think that second half, I think that's a good springboard into some games coming up here that they're going to need to play well. And I thought they played well in that second half. And, it was a good springboard for the next coming game.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. It's for me, Sykeston is kind of frustrating because it's one of those teams where it's like, I expect them to be better than what they are. And, coming in with a new coaching situation, that's always weird to kind of adjust, but you're a 2-2 team now. There's no excuse. You can't be down on yourself anymore because now you've hit that neutral point. And so you can consider every game you're going into a must-win game now, which you've got some tough opponents, of course, but you need to keep bringing it. Like if you're setting your schedule to match what you want to be, you have to bring it every game you're coming to.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of talk about their schedule this year because they played Crystal City to start the year off, a much smaller school. You add Malden, you're playing them for the first time since 1929. It's like almost 100 years since you played them. But you're doing it because you can't just play all these big schools. Hillsborough and teams like that they have played in the past. You can't play those big schools and take a beating and improve. I don't think you've got to get some wins. You've got to have some winnable games and have some games that give you some confidence. And I think this second half is exactly what they needed. Give them some confidence. Look, we can be a pretty good football team here. We can make the plays. We know we got to get the ball to Atkins. We know that we've got to get Baker out on the move, on the run, to throw the ball, things like that. And once you can have some success, your players see that success, then they can build toward getting better against some of these tougher games. And I think this is a good move for Sykeston.
Exactly. Yeah, coming off of the seasons that they've had, you're right. Building up confidence with games that you can win is probably a good move for them. Excited to see what they'll do, especially next season, with them kind of getting that maturity level up. Next game, Farmington at Jackson, 35-49.
Yeah, I watched a lot of this game. I was not super impressed with Jackson. They're not the Jackson of old. Now, they can score. I mean, they've got a good offense. Whenever you're not playing a bunch of D1 guys on the other side of the ball, you can, they can kind of have their way on offensively. Defensively, though, they just could not stop the run. They just really struggled with stopping Farmington. And Farmington's not a bad team, but it's just not what I'm used to seeing from Jackson. They are very explosive offensively, but defensively they've got a lot of improvements to make. A lot of some missed tackles, just in the wrong spots. I think Jackson, they're good, but I'm really starting to think that Cape Central might be the class of the area this year, not Jackson. We'll see. That it was a game that it was good to see Jackson play somebody who wasn't just loaded with D1 kids, but just a good solid football team in the area and see what they can do. But again, I think they've got to improve defensively.
Yeah. Jackson is a really mixed bag right now because every scoreboard I've looked at, they either win or lose with a 40 on the board, which is so weird. It is the epitome of a 2-2 team. Like you said, Farmington's not a bad team, and it's a more local team. But I think Cape Central might have it. We'll see.
We'll see in a couple weeks. Yeah,
we'll see coming up week 6. But this week Jackson's going to be playing Poplar Bluff. Cape Central just played Poplar Bluff. We'll talk about that in a second. We're going to finally see hey, you're playing a local team. This is local talent. How do you guys stack up with each other?
Yeah, and Jackson, again, they've got a good offense, and that offense is going to be able to score on anybody, and at least anybody in our area. And so they're never going to be out of a game. No game is not winnable for them. No game is, they're going to be favored in just about every game they play because of that strong offense. But for them to get where they want to get, you've got to improve that defense because that defense is not strong right now. And I think that, and I'm sure they know that, and I'm sure that that's going to be a point of emphasis this week going into Poplar Bluff, and we'll see what they do next week against Poplar Bluff. One thing about it, these are 16, 17, 18-year-old kids. They're going to, they can improve a lot from one week to the next. And so one thing I'm not going to do is just, Jackson's a very good football team. They're one of the top 2 teams in the area. I don't want to discount that. For where they want to be, I think they need to make some improvements.
Right. Coach Nesbitt said it's good to battle this adversity. Their offense is carrying them more than their defense, but there's going to be a time where that's going to swap and their defense is going to have to carry. It's just a hard point to be at. Talking about Jackson where they're coming off of a game saying a win is a win, that's not Jackson mentality to me, but, everything you said, they're going to have to pick it up.
Yeah, every year is a different year. And, and again, 16, 17, 18-year-old kids, you never know what you're going to get from day to day, let alone game to game. So
exactly.
So you never know, but, I expect them to get better for sure. And, they've got I'm sure they've got that Cape Central game circled just like Cape Central does. We've been talking about it since our first podcast, and this is they've got a Poplar Bluff game next week. They can't overlook them because Poplar Bluff is like the only local team to beat them in the last 3, 4, or 5 years. So they can't overlook them, and I don't think they will. So it'll be interesting to see next week, and then we'll talk. I'm sure we'll talk plenty next week about the Cape Central Jackson.
Oh, I don't doubt it. Speaking of Cape Central, Poplar Bluff.
They're a wagon. They're just dominating everybody. They're good in all facets of the game. They're good offensively, defensively, special teams. They have good players all over that field. They're so well coached. They just don't beat themselves at all. You just can't say enough good about them so far. And they just continue to dominate. And, Poplar Bluff was just the latest victim. Poplar Bluff's not a bad team, but, Cape Central just start to finish just dominated that game.
And to quote Jeff Mannon, Poplar Bluff's head coach, I think the kids were just kind of shell-shocked. I think everything that could have gone wrong went wrong in the beginning of the game.
Yeah, and that's what Cape does. Cape comes out and jumps on you quick, and they don't let up. They step on you, they don't let you up, and that's a sign of a good team, and it reminds me a lot of the teams that Coach Gibbs had at Sykeston back in the 2009, 2010, 2011. Those teams, they would just jump on you early, and they're playing their subs after half because there was no need to, and their subs are good. And they just weren't going to give you anything at all. They were just going to put it on you, and that's kind of what Cape Central's done. They just continue to roll, and it's going to be interesting to see how they play this season out because they've got a super tough district that we've talked about. Cardinal Ritter is right there, and they matched up last year in the semifinals, and we'll see. It'll be in district this year, but. Those are two very good teams, and that's going to be a heck of a football game if we see it, in November. But Cape Central right now, they're just rolling.
No, exactly. It's Cardinal Ritter being on the schedule in postseason that's a tough pill to swallow for Cape. We talked about that several times, but you're right. As far as a complete team that can do it all, Cape Central is right there. I keep having coworkers ask me, why do you keep putting Cape Central so high in your top 10s? And it's like, where else do you put them?
Yeah. I mean, to me, I think they've clearly established themselves as the best team in Southeast Missouri. I mean, clearly. Anybody that's seen them in person knows how good they really are. I mean, they've got 2 D1 caliber running backs. They have a great offensive line. Their defensive line is unreal. It just dominates the other team's offensive line week after week. They have good defenders on the back end, good linebackers. They're always in the right positions. They make tackles. They don't miss a lot of tackles. The special teams are dominant. They've got a kicker that can kick it from about 40, 45 yards without question. Made a kick to win a game in the state quarterfinals last year as a freshman. They're just solid all across the board. There's just not many weaknesses. And like I said, we'll see in a few weeks if they're deserving of that number 1 title. But I think they are, and there's nothing to tell me that they're not the best team in Southeast Missouri right now.
I can completely agree with you on that. So moving on, New Madrid County Central at Herman, 627.
Yeah, New Madrid played better. It was it's a tough, you drive 4 hours up there. It's a tough road trip. They're a good team. They've got a D1 defensive end. They've got they're a good team. They just kind of ran it on them, kind of dominated the offensive line. But New Madrid, hung in there. They finally scored for the first time in about, I think, 8 quarters or something. It had been a while since they'd scored. That was good to see. But man, they're not as bad as their record, but they played a tough schedule to start. Cape Central, Dexter. You've got 2 of the top 4 teams in the area, depending on how you rank them for sure. East Prairie is not a bad football team, and they almost won that. Then this Herman team, they're a very good football team. I mean, they've just played a tough schedule to start. They're not as bad as their record, but hopefully they're going to get some games here that I think are winnable for them coming up. But for them, it's just not beating themselves and getting the ball in the hands of your athletes in space where they can make plays. And I think they did that a little bit yesterday in the second half, and I think that's going to feed well into this week coming up.
I don't know what to think about New Madrid. Just from everything you've told me, they just seem kind of hard up right now, that's tough. That's tough to go into a situation, especially coming off the couple of years that you had prior of having really dominant D1 athlete on your team. And I don't know. Hey,
they're young. They're very young, and they're learning, and they're going to get better. The key is not to lose the team. You're 0-4, and when you're 0-4, the key is for a lot of these teams is not to see kids quit and see kids. You got to keep the team together, keep them positive, and say, hey, look, success is right around the corner, and that's tough for a coach to do sometimes. With again, because we're dealing with kids, so you just try to keep positive, and I think they are. Coach Fullhard, I think will keep them together, and the key for them is just to improve each week, and we need to see some improvement from them, and we'll see if they've got some improvement this week coming up.
In general, I would say when you're an O and anything team, that's hard. But the rush you get when getting that one, I think waylays that entire down feeling.
Oh, absolutely. And, we were just talking about it with Sykes, and you want to get those wins, and you want to make sure that, because that's the thing is, if you're not getting those wins, it's hard to get those kids to come out. Kids don't want to play on a losing team. I mean, that's not what they want to do. You want to get those wins, and the more you win, I think the harder your team tries. I think the more you win, the more that you get the buy-in by the fans, the buy-in by the media, the buy-in by everybody, and the more buy-in you get, the more excitement there is around the program, the more people want to be around it, and it just is a domino effect into to get your team better. So, the key is, like you said, getting that first win. And once you get that first win, you can kind of build off that. And I think it's coming for New Madrid.
And I say that as a Lions fan. So
you've experienced it.
I've experienced it. I know the truth of just like, hey, once you get something, don't let it go. Keep after it. Don't give up. Even if you're in this situation that New Madrid's in right now where things are looking murky for you, do not give up. You will get there.
Yeah. And New Madrid, again, they are not an 0-4 team. It's just they played some tough teams. Had a chance to win that East Prairie game and kind of let that one slip away. Probably should have won that game. And then they played 3 other really good football teams. So, I'm not looking at that 0-4 as, they're not a good team. It's just you got to get that first win, and once you get that first win, I think it can kind of start to roll a little bit. But they're a young team, and they're going to get there. They're going to be something to be dealt with here in a couple of years.
Speaking of teams that got their first win, Chaffee at Ballard, 60-21.
Yeah, Chaffee's still looking for that first win. I mean, they're struggling. They were in that. Chaffee led 14-12. There early, and then the wheels fell off. Mm-hmm. It fell off. They had 48 unanswered points from Ballard. Ballard's a pretty good team over in Kentucky. Turnovers, penalties, that kind of hurt Chaffee again. Some poor tackling. Chaffee's in a tough spot, being such a small school. They really kind of wanted to get out of the SEMO conference and kind of have started that Scott Miss now. And so they're not playing some of the teams that they were playing. So you're having to go out and play some of these different teams like Ballard. Man, it's just not working out well with them this year. They lost a lot of seniors off last year's team. And it's another team that's young, that's trying to build and trying to find that first win.
Now, okay, correct me if I'm wrong, just because Mish is telling me one thing, you're saying another. Chaffee didn't win this game?
Chaffee did not win that game. Okay, they lost 60-21.
Okay, they've got that reversed then.
Yeah, Chaffee did not win that game.
Oh, no. Man.
Yeah, they had a 14-12 lead, and Ballard scored 48 unanswered.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it started rolling in a bad way, I believe. So.
Well, sorry, Chaffee. I was super stoked.
What does Misha say?
That's what Misha says they won 60-21.
No, yeah. The score that was on Twitter and everything, and all the Twitter updates and everything were Ballard winning that game. So I'm pretty sure that. I'm pretty sure that's right. So
okay.
I mean, I hope we're right. We just did a whole big thing, but I'm all the stuff I was following on Twitter had Ballard going ahead and winning and scoring 48 unanswered. So
let me play devil's advocate. You've given your piece. I'll give my piece in case we're wrong, and I'll say,
we're wrong, yeah,
great job, Chaffee. You did it.
There we go.
Okay, so moving on. Crothersville at Charleston ending that game 34-6.
That game was close for the first half. Crothersville jumped up quick, had a 13-0 lead, and Charleston was able to score, keep it. It was 13-6 at half, and you're thinking, Charleston really hanging in there. Then second half, Crothersville just dominated. Really good defense by Crothersville. Just Charleston just couldn't, just had trouble finding space. Again, Crothersville is a really good football team. They just, I mean, they're just kind of a wagon themselves. It just had, like I said, had some scares in that first half. They kind of had some things go against them in the first half, but they really kind of put it on that second half and kind of put the game away.
Yeah, I don't have any real reason to not think Crothersville is the best team in Class 2 District 1.
We're going to find out this week. I mean, they play Valley. The two of them are in the district, and we'll find out real quick if Crothersville's, because I would think that one of those two teams is probably the top team in that district, and we're going to find out.
Well, you can definitely see the physicality in that team, and Coach Dom, he is super competitive. You can just see every second of that game, they're trying to be in it as much as they can be.
Yeah, and they've got good athletes. Sammy Bryant's a really good running back. He kind of gets overlooked. Jamonte Alexander's a very good player. I mean, and their quarterback, I've been impressed with him. He does a really nice job getting the ball to where he needs to get it. Doesn't make a ton of mistakes. I'm really impressed with their team. They've got a good offensive line, and they play well. So, but we'll find out for sure how good they are this week.
I think with its players, Crothersville, they've really got to hang their hat on, some players get overlooked, but at the same time, that's a benefit because if your QB is improving week after week, maybe you don't want a spotlight on them.
Yeah. They're kind of flying under the radar a little bit. And that's sometimes that's a really good thing. You can kind of sell your team on, hey, they're not respecting us, and they come out fired up every game. And sometimes that's a great place to be. And, Crothersville, they're just kind of just rolling on along, 4-0, and hey, they've got a great game this weekend to show, and I promise you, if they win this week coming up, there will be a lot of people taking notice.
Exactly. Moving on, Hayti Veritas Christian 58-21.
Yeah, I didn't get much on this game. I tried to find stuff on it, couldn't find other than they just rolled. And you kind of expect that. Their athletes are going to cause some problems for Veritas. Veritas is kind of a new team. They play several teams this year in the area. There used to be, I think, O'Fallon Christian or just Christian or whatever it is, but they're up in O'Fallon. And not much on this game other than, it looks like Hayti just had a lot better than Veritas.
Mm-hmm. I also really don't know too much about this game. I just know that coming off of what we saw last week, I think Hayti is finally starting to find their stride, which is going to be important coming up this week. They've got a big game this week. They're going to be very hard pressed to win. So, they need some wins on their schedule. This was a good one for them. Like you said, I mean, Hayty's athletic. We know that. We know they can throw. J.C. Ford, once again, he had a great game. I don't have his stats on me right now, but I know that he did exceptional.
Yeah, and that's what you got to have from them. Just get for Hayti, just get the athletes out in space and just let them go to work. And it looks like they were able to do that.
Moving on, Kennett at Kelly, 18-34.
Yeah, this game was kind of a ugly game, I don't know. I watched a little bit of this game, was kind of in and out on it. And it was just ugly. I'll tell you one thing, Skylar Still from Kelly is a really good player. He makes a lot of things happen offensively and defensively. He's a quarterback, he can throw the ball. He's been starting for them since he was a freshman. Does a really nice job there. He can run and puts the ball in the receiver's hands where they need it. Doesn't make a lot of mistakes. That's what you want. He also on defense is a defensive back this year. First time he's really played defense, but he had a key interception in this game, and really plays well. Kennett, they scored. They got 18 points. They found some offense, and now you just kind of build off that. Again, you got to get some guys back healthy. They've got a lot of guys that are out, but I think they were able to show that I think they're starting to find themselves offensively a little bit, and that's going to be good for them, especially when they get some guys back. Exactly.
Good for Kennett for getting some points on the board. Kelly, to me, is such a weird team because, like you said, Skylar Stills, he is best described as a scrambler and a ball hawk at the same time. It depends on what jersey they're wearing. It's so weird to see them perform one week and not perform the next week. So, this is a good win for them overall.
Yeah. Kelly, they had a tough game last week against Rolla. Rolla's a lot bigger school. It's going to be that's a tough game for Kelly, but it was good to see them come out and rebound from that. I felt they dominated this game for the most part. I never really felt like Kennett was going to win this game. But at the same time, they're not going to be, Kelly's not going to be an explosive offensive team. I don't think that they're going to be a team that's going to score 50, 60 points in a game and just really explode offensively. They're ball control. They don't, they don't get in a big hurry. They just want to control the game. And they were able to do that against Kennett. It was couple, 2-score game essentially, but really I never felt that they were in any danger of losing that game. It was just, they're just a solid football team. Nothing fancy, nothing flashy. They're just a solid team.
It's kind of hard to be that right now though, especially with all these teams around you that are mostly, I don't want to say glass cannons on offense, but these are shootout games where these numbers are really high. And so when you're performing, 34, that's not a small number at all, but when you're performing like that, against Kennett's down. And so when I'm not seeing those like massive number jumps, it kind of makes me feel suspect about the games you're going to be playing in the future.
Yeah. And, Kelly's not, they've never been one of those teams that's just really just going to blow you out. Under Coach Powers, he wants to control the game on offense. And again, they don't get in a hurry. They play good defense. And I don't know, for some reason, I always think of the Steelers when I see Kelly play. That's just kind of what always just pops into my head. They're just a hard-nosed, gritty team, and they win a lot of games. I mean, they've had some good success in the last decade since they started that program, and I think that's just the way they play. They understand that's how they're going to play, and they win a lot of games that way. So and they can kind of balance, these glass cannon teams that you're talking about, they can kind of keep them off balance whenever your offense isn't on the field because your offense is moving, 3 yards, 4 yards, 5 yards. Oh, here's a 10-yard pass, 3 yards, 4 yards, 5 yards. It takes a while. Your offense is off the field. You don't get in a groove, and you can't, don't get those big plays necessarily as much. So, I think Kelly, they know who they are, and they are just they just kind of just, they're another team that kind of just goes under the radar.
No, well put. I think the Steelers analogy is perfect because, like the Steelers, they're a team that I feel like a lot of teams could look on their schedule and just be like, that's a win. And then, be completely upset by it because Kelly's not a team that you can overlook at all. At the same time, they've got pieces that they need to kind of fill and adjust just to be a little bit better than what they've shown.
Mm-hmm. And they're another team that's got a lot of younger guys. They tend to lean on their seniors, but they've got a lot of younger guys that play some roles for them. So they're another team that they don't necessarily rebuild. They just kind of reload, so to speak. And they've always got kind of younger guys in the wings that are kind of coming up. And so, I think this is a team that just kind of just moseys right along.
Moving on to my favorite game of this week, Scott City at Portageville.
It was a great game.
It was a great game.
Just a great game. Both teams, I thought that was just such a physical game. It's just like every time I looked up, somebody's slow getting up and just guys colliding and just a tough game. Both teams I thought played well. Portageville, had the upper hand in the first half. I thought Scott City made some good adjustments there in the second half. I'm very impressed with their quarterback, Jackson Gloth. Extremely impressed. He got kind of dinged up there and came, and I thought, whenever that happened, I thought, well, game's over. Portageville was going to pull away here, and nope. But he was able to, stick in there, and then it was kind of a back and forth. Jackson went ahead, and then immediately a kick return from Hickenbotham. But I thought Scott City's defense in the second half really kind of. Took it to Portageville, didn't allow Portageville much there in that second half, and I thought that was the difference in the game.
Exactly. Everything you said, 100%, I can agree. I was at that game. I got to watch it firsthand. Jackson Gloth is a phenom, I think. And, against a team that I've been rooting for since we started doing this, Portageville looked great. Like, it was such a back and forth game completely. Like you said, that return from Higginbottom, that set a tone for me that I was just like, I just don't see how Scott City's going to win this game. And there was a moment where Jackson Gloth he had shades of Mahomesian in him, of just, I can break out of the pocket and I can make a pass at a crucial moment. One of those was taken back by a flag, which is unfortunate, but then he could just do it again later. And the passes he makes, they look great. They look fantastic. Our photographer was down on Scott City's sideline taking pictures, and somebody told them, they said, hey, just to let you know, that game against Hayti, we didn't show up. And from judging from this game, I think that's completely accurate. Scott City looked great.
Yeah, you talked about last week how when Scott City kind of got down to Hayti, they kind of really, it seemed like they were just not really there. It seemed like, they weren't, it's kind of, they were, moving in slow motion. So kind of what it looked like on camera and stuff. And it was so yeah, they definitely didn't show because, they definitely showed up this week and kind of bounced back. And, I know their coach was not happy. I saw a story with him talking about after that Hayti game about how they just didn't play well. And, it's, again, 16, 17, 18-year-old kids, it's going to happen. You're going to have games that you get up for, other games that you don't. And sometimes those games can kind of get away from you. But Scott City is a good football team. They were able to show Friday night that, they're not just give the ball to Underwood and get out of the way, that they can throw the ball a little bit too, kind of let Jackson Gloth get out and do a little bit more than what I've seen from them a little bit. And just a really nice game for them. I think they, that's something I think they needed to bounce back from, and just a really good game. And, it was just a fun game to watch.
Exactly. And from both teams, I could kind of see it is that, we talked about it last week. We just expected to be run after run after run, but passes from both teams, surprising me out of nowhere. The Parton brothers, they could make connections. Absolutely. That got them out of critical situations. But with Scott City too, like you said, Underwood, we expected him to run a lot. And he did. He had those cutbacks that looked great. He could make a crucial play. But for the most part, Portersville had him sequestered. They could just lock him down. When they did, Jackson Gloth either made a pass or he ran the ball himself. And physically, he kind of dominated this game.
Yeah, and they are. Scott City's just good. I mean, their offensive line, I was real impressed with them. I'd heard a lot of stuff after the East Prairie game about how good their offensive line was, and I could see it. I didn't really see that last week, but I could see it this week against Portersville. I thought they did a really nice job, and like I said, Portersville, they showed that they could throw the ball a little bit. They've been just basically, dominantly a run team, but they definitely showed that they can throw the ball a little bit, and it's really just a shame that one of these teams had to lose this game because and it's really not a knock on Portersville. I mean, Portersville's they're still a good team. I still think that they're a good team. It's just a tough game, and you move on to next week and you try to pick up a win next week. But just a really good game by two good football teams, and if you get a chance, watch that game on A Corp Sports because that was a really nice game.
One more thing I want to bring up, just because it really changed my perspective of this game, because like you said, this is a winnable game for either team. It was just a shame that one of them had to lose it. For Portageville, I think they would have had this on a lock if they had somebody who could kick a field goal.
Yeah. And again, I think we talked about this a few weeks ago. It's just tough to get a kicker at this level. You have to focus so much on everything, offense, defense, teaching all these skills that sometimes special teams kind of gets I don't know, it's an afterthought. And then you try to get a kid that can kick in there, and that's not something that kids are just out there practicing all the time. That's not something that they want to do. Some of these bigger schools who have soccer teams, they just bring out a soccer kid and let him kick on Friday nights. But these smaller schools, they don't have that. These kids aren't playing soccer, or these kids aren't, so they're not doing much kicking as growing up. So it's tougher for these smaller schools to get kickers and stuff like that. And but yeah, a lot of these games, it could come down to a kicker, and a kicker, you instead of going for a 4th and 5 on the 15, maybe you kick a field goal and get 3 points out of it. But it just a lot, not everybody has that option, and you just kind of have to work around it. And sometimes that in a game like this, it'll cost you.
I think this might show some of these local teams that, hey, maybe we need to focus on it, because when you look at it just on the numbers, 4 2-point conversion attempts, all 4 fail. If you had gotten 2 of those, that would have gone to overtime.
Yeah. And and then the thing is, you missed the first one, and then, okay, what do we do? Do we now go for 2 on all of them? And it's always kind of an interesting game, because, we see in college and pros, most of the time they're going to make those point afters.
Oh, it's clockwork.
And so you don't have those decisions to make. Am I going to try to chase the points that I'm missing, or do I? And so, and some teams, that's just in their game. Look, we're going to go for 2 every time. That's just we are going to deal with it. And
especially for like a team like Portageville, that ground and pound smash mouth football, that's in their DNA.
Right. And it's sometimes it'll bite you, and I don't know. It's each individual team's different when it comes to that, but I really believe that it's really tougher to find a kicker at these smaller schools, just because, again, there's no soccer when they're young. There's just nothing for them to really. I mean, what are you doing kicking a ball? I mean, when you're younger, there's no reason to. When you're around in those smaller towns, there's just nothing to do that way. I mean, you're playing basketball, you're playing football, but it's not involved kicking. So, it's just something that I'm sure that they would love to have a kicker, and I don't know, maybe this week they're trying to find somebody that can make an extra point.
Moving on, let's talk about power rankings. Once again, I'm going to start it off Cape Central, not my number one.
I think our top three are going to be the same today.
Probably.
I think so, because I'm going to go Cape Central number one again. I moved them up there last week, and I talked about them earlier. They're just playing really well right now. You can't convince me right now that there's a better team. So I'm going Cape Central, and then I'm going to go Jackson number two. And then Dexter 3. I think those are the top three teams, hands down. And then I'm jump ahead here and get Crothersville number 4. I think those are my top 4, and I don't think there's anybody up there at those level of those top 4.
I can agree with you. Crothersville's my number 4. I hate to take Portageville off of it, but like I keep saying, losses look worse than wins. Right. And Crothersville is 4-0, along with Dexter and Cape Central, so they have to be my number 4. My number 5, which is kind of an upset, I would probably say I've taken Hayti.
I went with Scott City. With the fact that, they didn't play well last week, and they looked really well. They looked really good against Portageville. They played really well. That Portageville is a tough team that hammered Hayti, and then I know that Hayti beat Scott City. Right now it's just a jumble. My 5 through 10, you can just jumble them up and just pick them out of the hat, because each week it could be different. But so I'm going to go 5 Scott City, and 6 I'm going to go Portageville.
6 I took Scott City. 7 I took Portageville.
And 7 is Hayti. And again, Hayti could be 5. They could be 6. They could be 7. And I think Hayti this week is bitten by I don't know much about. I didn't get much information on their game against Veritas, other than they scored a bunch. It's tough when you don't see them. I saw Scott City and Portageville play. I was impressed with both teams. So Hayti kind of gets dropped. Next week they could be number 5 easily. I mean, it's just those 5, 6, and 7 on my board are all they are right there together.
It is funny because I think we're probably in the same mindset of just our 5, 6, 7, and our 8, 9, and 10 are probably just these interchangeable layers.
Just interchangeable parts.
Moving on to 8, I took Kelly from a number 8.
I've got East Prairie. I thought even in a loss, I thought East Prairie is I thought they played really well in the first half. They had an unfortunate interception that kind of cost them as they were kind of going into. I mean, they were kind of looking like they might get into score. They had another drive that was stopped inside the 10. Just even in a loss, I was impressed with them, and I think they've got a good foundation moving forward. They're a good, strong team. I have Kelly as my number 9.
Number 9, I took Charleston. Coming off a loss to Crothersville, I mean, that's nothing that you can really hang your head about, because Crothersville is 4-0 and they look dominant. So I think for where they're at, Charleston's still in that top 10, but they have moved down a couple spots for me.
Yeah, I've got Charleston as my number 10, so I got Kelly at 9, Charleston 10, and again 8, 9, 10. East Prairie, Kelly, Charleston. You can flip those however you want. It's 8A, 8B, 8C. I'm not going to die on a hill on any of these numbers for sure for these teams, because any of these teams can beat each other on any given night. So East Prairie, Kelly, and Charleston are all right there together, but they're my 8, 9, 10.
My 8, 9, 10, Kelly, Charleston. I've taken East Prairie for my number 10. I've also put a slash and put Sykeston, just because I'm kind of giving them the benefit of the doubt on that one, but
No, not me. I think head-to-head East Prairie would beat them. Just from what I've seen from East Prairie, what I've seen from Sykes, and I think head-to-head East Prairie would win that game. And a lot of times, whenever just push comes to shove, that's how I'm going to decide it. And I think Sykes would be my 11, but I think East Prairie, they're physical, they're strong. They've got some athletes out there, which you don't always see from East Prairie, and they're very well coached, and so I think East Prairie, they're going to win some games here coming up, and I think it's really going to kind of lift them up in some people's eyes.
Moving on, let's talk about our games coming up next week. First one on my listing, I've got Farmington at Sykeston. Both 2-2 teams.
I think that's at Farmington.
Oh, sorry.
Yep. I'm pretty sure that's at Farmington. But I think that they are. I think Farmington's going to win that game. They'll be able to run. What I saw from them against Jackson, I don't think Sykeston's. I think Sykeston's going to struggle to stop them. Sykeston will score. I think Sykeston's going to get some points in this game. I think it'll be a higher scoring game, but I think Farmington is going to. I think it's going to be too much. Plus, Sykeston never plays well when they have to travel to Farmington. They just never play well up there, and it's just long drive up hills, and it's just never good. So I'm going to take Farmington. Yeah,
I don't really have much of a comment besides what you've said. Is that Farmington looked good against Jackson as far as for the scoreboard for what it was. They're not a bad team. They're a 2-2 team, just like Jackson, just like Sykeston. But I think Farmington's probably going to take this one too. Moving on, Scott City at Malden. After seeing Scott City this past week, I don't think there's any doubt in my mind that they've got this game.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think that Scott City wins this one. I think Malden I think Malden's going to hit a couple big plays or two, but I think they've got to figure out some sort of run game because the games can kind of get out of hand whenever it's just pass. I think they've got to figure out a run game. It's going to be tough against that Scott City defensive line to get a run game going. There's going to be a lot of pressure on the quarterback. I think Scott City wins this one going away. It's a tough matchup for Malden. The way Scott City plays, I think it's a real tough matchup. And definitely Scott City.
Yeah, you can't pin Scott City down either. They change up their offense so much that Malden's just going to struggle with that. Moving on, Poplar Bluff at Jackson.
I'm going to take Jackson. I think, playing at home, Jackson's always good in the pit. But I want to see a better defensive performance from Jackson. Poplar Bluff, they were held to 6 points against Cape Central. I want to see what Jackson can do. I want to see, I need to see them, take some better angles on some tackles. I need to see them, not miss as many tackles and be in the right spots. I need to, I think Jackson's will score enough they can win this game going away. But I think that, so I think Jackson's going to win, but I want to see something from their defense.
No, exactly. I think Jackson will win this game. I want to see what that scoreboard's going to look like at the end of the day, because that's going to tell me what Jackson's defense can do against Cape Central. I don't know. I don't think there's any doubt that Jackson's going to win this game. You know what? Poplar Bluff might come in angry too. Who knows?
Yeah. Oh, I would think they would. I don't think Poplar Bluff's going to be a rollover, but I just think I don't think their defense is going to be good enough to hold. I don't think Poplar Bluff is going to be able to outscore Jackson if you get into a run and shoot game. I just don't. So I think Jackson wins this one. But again, if Jackson doesn't play good defense, that could change. I mean, Poplar Bluff, they've shown the ability to score this year. So that they're certainly not going to be a pushover.
Moving on, we have St. Dominic at Cape Central.
Cape Central, I'm on Cape Central's wagon. We're going to ride this till the wheels come off. They're a very good football team, and I think no matter who they play right now, it's not Cardinal Ritter. I think they've got the advantage, and I'm going to take Cape Central.
Beyond this, their week one though, this is the first time Cape Central's playing a team with a winning record. So, we talked about at the start of the show that this week was kind of a measuring stick for what we think the rest of the season is going to be like. And I think that's apt, especially for this game. It's just like, this isn't Mickey Mouse football anymore. You're playing some actual teams. Right. And I don't know how this game's going to go. I don't really know much about St. Dominic, but hey, you're playing against a team that's 3-1. So you do have to bring a little more gusto than you were last week.
Yeah, they're not going to be, I really feel like they're going to be on the same level as St. Dominic's going to be on the same level as Poplar Bluff. I really feel that they would be a pretty evenly matched team just from what I've been told and everything and some things I've seen. Cape Central can't get caught looking ahead. I think that's one thing that they really can't do here. But I don't think they will. I think they're pretty focused. Coach Gibbs is good about keeping them focused, and he's got them rolling right now. And as long as you stay healthy and everything, just take care of business, and then you get the fun game the next week.
Exactly. Portageville at Charleston. I think Portageville is going to win this one just because they're playing ticked off.
I think it's going to be a close game. I really do. I think Portageville wins it. I think they can. I think when push comes to shove, I think defensively they're a little better than Charleston. But I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think it's going to be a good football game, very similar to what we saw this past week. I think it's maybe Portugal's first road game, if I'm not mistaken. I think they may have had one other one earlier this year, but
I think that's correct.
But Charleston, they play well at home. They're going to be ready to. They're going to be ready to go. But I'm going to take Portugal in a close one.
Yeah, storyline wise, I mean, for Porterville, this is a get right game in a way, just because against Scott City, I think this is the first time they've lost at home in 2 years, and so you're coming in with a chip on your shoulder into this game. I think Charleston's going to play like how Charleston has been playing. They're going to be playing good football, very aggressive football. But like you said, I think Porterville's just probably going to overtake them. Moving on, Kelly at New Madrid.
I have one thing circled on my paper here that I have, and you can see this paper over here. I'm going to change it. I'm going to go with New Madrid. As I've been thought about this game on the drive over. I thought it was going to be a close game. I still think it's going to be a close game. I think it's a toss-up. I think anybody can win it, but I'm going to go New Madrid. I think New Madrid is going to be able to get the ball out in space to their athletes and get one more score than Kelly. And I think it's and playing at home, New Madrid is going to be fired up. I don't know. I think it's going to be a really good football game. It may be the best game of the week, but I'm going to go New Madrid.
So I hear what you're saying. And I've heard what you've said this whole time about New Madrid, how they have shades of a good football team. And you're right. I'm going to take Kelly, but it's also a complete toss-up for me. I have no dog in this fight. I think they're both pretty much on equal playing fields in a way. I just think Kelly's got a little more star power to them, but I don't know.
The key for me is, can New Madrid not beat themselves? Can you limit the penalties? Can you limit the turnovers? Can you punt the football and not get it blocked, not give them short fields? They've been giving short fields to the other team all season long because of their lack of punting, mistakes in the punting game. If you can limit that, I think if you can make Kelly drive the length of the field and have not give them easy scores inside the 10, 15, I have New Madrid, and I've got confidence that they're going to do that this week. We'll see next week what happens.
Moving on, Kennett at East Prairie.
I got East Prairie. I'm sitting here praising East Prairie even in a loss. I like what I've seen from them this year. They're a tough team. They're a physical team. I think that Kennett's going to struggle to score against them. East Prairie's going to control the clock. They're going to be able to run the football with Tavion Ware. They've got a good quarterback. They've got a good receiver. Their offensive line is getting better each week. I'm going to take East Prairie, and I just don't think Kennett can score enough to beat them.
Completely agree. I mean, I don't know. I want Kennett to get a win, but I just don't think it's going to be against this team. East Prairie, for, like you said, against Dexter, they held them to sub 40. And that's not something any other team that Dexter's played can really say. So, yeah, I'm going to take East Prairie for this one. Principia at Chaffee.
Principia. I don't know anything about Principia. I know that Chaffee's just kind of in a funk right now. They've not really been very competitive in their games. It's kind of one of those that it's just not going well for them right now. They're a younger football team. They're trying to find something. I'm going to go Principia in that game.
I'm going to give it to Chaffee, just because whether or not they've actually got a win this season, I don't honestly know anymore. I want them to get a win, and I've looked at Principia's schedule a little bit and kind of the games they played. I think this is definitely winnable for Chaffee. I don't see a reason that it couldn't be.
Yeah, it's not it's certainly not a game that you're looking at it and being like, oh, well, they're going to come in and win by 50 points. I don't feel like that. I don't know. Sometimes when you kind of take it on the chin, you get, it's like, it's really tough to get that, to win those close games. I think this may be a close game, and it's tough to win that game when you're not used to winning it. So, and I don't know. I really want Chaffee to win. I have some connections to Chaffee. I really want them to win. I'm going to go Principia though.
Okay. St. Vincent at Hayti.
I'm going to take St. Vincent. I think it's going to be a good game. I think St. Vincent has not played a team with this kind of athletic ability. They're definitely not a team with this kind of speed. Them playing close with Perryville last week makes me think that Hayti can win this game. I don't know. I just think that St. Vincent's just a little more sound on the offensive line. I think they're going to be able to hold them down and hold JC Ford, keep him from scrambling a little bit. They've got they were state semifinalists last year for a reason. They got a lot of guys back. I'm going to go St. Vincent, but I don't think Hayti's blown out here. I think Hayti, makes it a game, but I think St. Vincent's just got a little bit too much.
So for the past 2 weeks, we've done staff picks on our broadcast, and both times I have been wrong in my pick. So either that means teams are just surprising us, or I don't know ball. I'm going to pick Hayti for this game. I'm going to shot call it. I'm going to say Hayti shocks the world and takes the crown away from St. Vincent. Just off of what you said, and everything I've said about this team is their athleticism. They're finding a flow. I think they can do it. If anybody was going to do it, I'd say Hayti has a good shot at it this week. I'm going to pick Hayti.
There you go. I think it's going to be a good game. I really do. I don't think Hayti is going to be a pushover at all here. St. Vincent's getting all the publicity around here. Hayti's kind of flying under the radar. But I just don't know. I think that they've got, being that, St. Vincent, was in the state semifinals last year. They've got the experience. They know how, they've got a lot of guys that have played a lot of football. Hayti's still pretty young. I think that wins out.
I love an underdog. That's just my opinion. But moving on, Crothersville at Valley Catholic.
I feel like I'm taking every non-area team this week because I'm going to take Valley here. It's another game that I think could be problematic for Valley. I've not seen anything from Valley this year as far as any kind of clips or anything. I don't know. I just know what Valley typically is. And I know it's a tough place to go up there and play. I expect it to be a close game. But I think this will kind of give the edge. Whoever wins this game will have the edge in Class 2, District 1, in my opinion. I think this is a game that if you're Crothersville and you lose, it gets you even more motivated for districts. And I think if it's Valley and you lose, you get more motivated for districts. So it's not even if you lose, I don't think it's a complete downfall game, but I think I'm going to take Valley in this one.
So currently in Class 2, District 1, Crothersville is 2 and Valley is 3. That's because Valley lost to St. Vincent earlier in the season. This is going to be a close one. And I don't know what's going to be like the X factor for either team. I think they're both extremely comparable.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's a hard pick. I'm also going to take Valley, even though I'd like to see Crothersville go 5-0.
Yeah, I think I would love to see Crothersville win. I'm always wanting our teams to win here, and a lot of times I pick against them because then I'm like, okay, motivate them a little bit. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think that's I definitely would love to see Crothersville bounce out of that district and see what they can do in the playoffs. But that's still a ways down the road. Let's just see how they match up against Valley, and then you kind of go from there.
So moving on, this is the game we're going to be covering this week with A-Corp Sports. Southern Boone at Dexter.
This is going to be a hard-hitting, hard-fought game. It's a game that I think Dexter needs. Southern Boone just lost this last week. They lost to Booneville 13-3. They're a very ground-heavy team. They've got a good quarterback, Mason Shearer. He's kind of a dual-threat guy. They have a really good defense. I really kind of feel like defensively they're a mirror image to Dexter. They're a hard-hitting team. They don't allow big plays. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. Whoever makes the fewest mistakes wins. Typically in these games, I will go against Dexter just because a hyped-up Dexter team you usually fade. And in 30 years, a good Dexter team, usually in a big game, you kind of tend to go the other way. I think this is a different Dexter team this year. I really feel like this got a different feel, and so I'm going to take Dexter in a close, hard-fought game.
I think the score that we saw from Southern Boone, 3-13, is probably going to be exactly what this game is. Which way it goes, like you said, it's who blinks first. I think Dexter's defense looks incredible. And I think against this team, which if they're perfect mirrors of each other, that's going to be a good game, and it's going to be a hard game, and it's going to be a frustrating game.
Yeah. I don't think you're going to see a lot of points. I'm like you, at 13-3. I was thinking something like 14-12, something in that area. It was kind of what I had in my brain. Again, extra points could be big in this one. You want to be solid in all facets of the game. You can't give up a big play. Dexter gave up a kick return to Malden to start the season. You can't give up big plays like that. You've got to be sound on all facets of the game. I think both teams will. You just try to make a play. I think Jet Grams and his ability to carry tacklers, and even if they're there in the right spot, he's able to carry tacklers. I think that's the difference in the game, and that's why I'm going Dexter. I just really think that they're going to make one more play than Southern Boone, and they'll get this win.
Yeah, and that might show our bias towards the team in our area, the place I came from. But
I'm picking against every other team.
Yeah. No, you're right.
It's an out area team, but yeah, you may be right.
I'm also gonna take Dexter for the reasons that you said. The physicality they bring to every game is honestly stunning, but this is the litmus test. Are you a team that's going to make it? You have to win this game. It's going to set that tone for that Park Hills game, which I think is going to be just as difficult.
Right.
People have said Park Hills are down. I don't think so. I think they might have just slipped up a little bit.
Yeah, they may be down from last year's state finalist team, but they are not down for, I'm like, they're not what a lot of other teams, when we say down here, I mean, you got teams that haven't won a game yet. They're not down. They're not down.
They're just down.
They're just not what they were last year. They're still a good football team. And yeah, that'll be another big test, but this is the test that you have in front of you. This is the test, if you're Dexter, that a lot of people, if anybody is questioning Dexter and they lose this game, then they're going to have all the fuel to the fire, being like, well, they're good against these teams that aren't very good, but they're not a very good, they're a good team. No, you win this game and you can say, look, we are a good football team. We're going to make some noise this year. And so it's a very big game for Dexter, I think. And just how they're perceived, not just locally, but statewide. You're ranked in state. How if you lose this game, how's that impact how you fall? If you win this game, how much do you rise? And that puts you in a conversation that you've not been in a very, very long time here. The last time I remember Dexter being very highly ranked was mid 80s, 86, 87. Those teams were really good. And honestly, this is the best Dexter team that I think I've seen since those teams. So this is the test that you have in front of you, and let's just see how Dexter comes out.
Exactly. It's definitely put your money where your mouth is. I think this team can do it, though. Grandstanding aside, schedule aside, if there was a Dexter team to do it, this is the team to do it. I'm excited to see it.
Yeah.
I'm glad that we're covering it. We were thinking about covering it from the start, but we thought, it's too many Dexter games to put on our schedule. But we pivoted and we said, no, we really want to do this game because we know the stakes that are attached to it. So I'm hoping for a close game. I'm hoping for exactly what we've been talking about. I hope Dexter goes 5-0. I think going into Park Hills, that's going to be your saving grace, is that, hey, we made it. We can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, they have a chance. They have a chance to have the first undefeated regular season since '86. And this is a game that you got to win. That '86 team, they had to win a couple of big games. They had to beat a New Matter team at home in this very similar situation. It was a up and coming New Matter team, but it was that '86 team. I think it was 24-13. They won that game. It was a kind of a lower scoring game. They were a high scoring offense, had a good defense. It was really, really similar to this game. And they were able to pull that one out. And, this could be the exact same kind of litmus test for them. And it has the same kind of feel to it. So I think a lot of Dexter older fans will remember. I'm kind of dating myself here that I remember that game. But yeah. And I think this is a very similar game to that. And, Charles Bland Stadium ought to be full for this game on Friday night because it's going to be a very good game with two state-ranked teams. I mean, you're not going to find a better game on Friday night. Not
at all. All right. We will be covering that game Friday, Pre-game show should go live around 6:45. You can catch that on the A Corp Sports YouTube channel or Facebook feed. David, do you have anything else?
No.
Closing remarks for this week?
Just a good week of games. I'm excited to see some of these games and how they play out. A lot of tough picks this week, a lot of toss-ups, and a lot of games I wouldn't be surprised if they were flipped on what we have. But yeah, I think some really good games, some really good tests for some teams this week, and it's going to be a lot of fun this week for sure.
Yeah, exactly. I think going into it, this is when it starts getting exciting.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're pretty much at the halfway point completely right now. So thank you for tuning in, and we will catch you next week on the SEMO Sports Zone.